A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another book review today, so cheers to that. Today I'm looking at the Marvel event, Secret Invasion. This was the event that kicked off right after Civil War. Apologise for the beeping of the refrigerator. Kicked off after Civil War and the death of Captain America, which was kind of like a huge deal. They do have the Disney Plus TV show, Secret Invasion. I've only watched a couple of episodes, really enjoying it, although I've read some pretty bad reviews of it. But this is the comic book event that was absolutely huge when it came out. So we are going to go through this today. Just a warning, massive spoilers. I'm going to go through the whole thing. There are going to be characters in here that most of you probably don't even know about. I know I certainly have no idea who half of the people in this fucking book are, even though I've read this thing like 3 times. The cover art, of course, just tells you everything you need to know. It's going to be a smorgasbord of heroes with the Skrulls walk among us. Now, those of you that aren't familiar with the Marvel Universe, there are 2 major alien races, the Skrulls and the Kree. If you've been watching the MCU, you know the Skrulls first appeared and the Kree first appeared in Captain Marvel. But they have been kind of mainstays in the Marvel Universe from the very beginning. Now, one of the big things that happened very early on in the Marvel Universe was the Skrulls attacked and the Fantastic Four turned them into cows. And those cow Skrulls were living, they got eaten by a village. The village kind of got turned into half Skrulls. It was a whole big thing. But that is actually important for the story of Secret Invasion. So let's get right into the next episode of... Okay, so this is Secret Invasion. Now, for those of you that have no idea, I apologize for the beeping. That is going to happen all throughout this video. Just ignore it. Those of you that don't know who the Skrulls are, they're a race of shape-shifting aliens in the MCU, the Marvel Universe. Okay, so we start at a bar. Captain America has just been killed, and some people are kind of talking shit, and they're SHIELD soldiers, and someone tells them to kind of keep their mouth shut because Dum Dum Dugan is there, and he's kind of overhearing it, and he gets kind of pissy, throws his glass, goes back to his boat where he is met by the Countessa. They talk about where is Nick Fury, is Captain America really dead? And suddenly she reveals that she has Wolverine claws and she stabs Dum Dum Dugan with them, revealing herself to be a Skrull, and she takes on Dum Dum Dugan's form as he is lying wounded. We then move into Secret Invasion. We get this shot of the Skrull homeworld, and they talk about how it's been destroyed and they need to take over another place. Here we have Iron Man, Tony Stark, Reed Richards and Hank Pym, and they have discovered that Elektra, the on-again, off-again girlfriend of Daredevil, has in fact been a Skrull this whole time, but she was undetectable. They didn't actually know that she was a Skrull. So they're trying to work out what is going on. We then get a shot of SWORD, which is the offshoot of SHIELD. So SHIELD kind of protects the Earth on the Earth, and SWORD is in orbit around the Earth, and they have picked up a ship that is going to be crash landing on Earth. Agent Brand, who is the head of SWORD, has kind of picked up this vessel. And so they get word down to the heroes. So Tony Stark, Hank Pym, and Reed Richards are kind of testing this Elektra Skrull to find out how she could have remained undetected for so long. Tony Stark gets the call, so he is off to investigate this downed ship. He heads off. We see Jessica Drew and Jarvis, the butler to the Avengers. Now, this all comes after Civil War. So you have the Avengers, and then you have those heroes that didn't conform to the Superhero Registration Act. And Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, contacts Luke Cage and lets him know about this downed ship that has crash landed on Earth. So you can see she's kind of playing both sides of the same coin here. The heroes that didn't follow the Registration Act break into the Avengers Tower, steal a Quinjet, and head off to the location of this downed ship. Of course, when Tony Stark arrives, he's pretty pissed off about all of this. We can see we have Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, we have Black Widow. So they all head off to the Savage Land. That is where the ship has crashed. Now, those of you that don't know what the Savage Land is, it's an area in Antarctica that is kind of like a lost valley. There are dinosaurs living there. It's the home of Kazar, and where the mutant Sauron had his kind of mutant headquarters for a time. The Quinjet is attacked by a T-Rex, which is attacked by a bigger T-Rex, and so on and so forth. We get all of the heroes. We have Wolverine, Ronan, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Spider-Man. Not quite sure who she is. Maybe Psylocke. I'm not really sure. They find this abandoned laboratory, but they are looking for the crashed Skrull ship, which they do manage to find, just as Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Ares, the God of War, Sentry, and someone. As I said, there are so many heroes in this thing that it's ridiculous. Can't keep up. Find them. They are about to do battle. We have Spider-Woman here and Black Widow. When Dum Dum Dugan, who we know is the Skrull that took out the original Dum Dum Dugan, blows up the SWORD headquarters, and Jarvis, who now we know is a Skrull, initiates a virus that affects Tony Stark's armor, so that takes him out of the game. So Tony Stark is basically telling everyone to get the fuck away from me. We have the helicarrier over the city. The helicarrier starts to go down. So the Skrulls at this point have pretty much infiltrated all aspects of the Marvel heroes, and we've got they've initiated viruses and whatnot all over the place. We then move to Thunderbolt's Mountain. Thunderbolt's Mountain, of course, the Thunderbolts are a group of quote-unquote reformed villains under the guidance and leadership of Norman Osborn, who was the original Green Goblin. It comes under attack, and here we see Captain Marvel, who is I believe a half Skrull at this point. Now we go to Manhattan with the Baxter Building. There is a group of individuals on tour of the Baxter Building, kind of like a tourist hotspot, the Baxter Building being the home of the Fantastic Four. One of them is a Skrull, shapeshifts into the form of Susan Storm, infiltrates the Baxter Building and sets off the portal to the negative zone, which is going to collapse the Baxter Building into the negative zone itself. As you can see here, they try to get Tony in the Savage Land. They try to get him kind of out of the situation because everyone is suspicious of everyone else. And then the ship opens and we see a ton of heroes that have come out from this crashed Skrull ship. And we're led to believe that they have been prisoners the entire time. You can see a Wolverine, Captain America, Mockingbird, Vision, Luke Cage, Thor, Beast, Spider-Man, the White Queen, Susan Richards. There's an Iron Man there. And these heroes are like, what the fuck? They cannot tell who is a Skrull and who isn't a Skrull. Are these the actual heroes? Are the heroes that we know the actual heroes? We have no idea. Agent Brand is out in space after the Sword satellite exploded. And she is just trying to get some help. They have only about 10 minutes of oxygen left. Back in the laboratory, Hank Pym is working with Reed Richards, and he pulls a gun on him and basically blasts him into this silly putty-like thing and reveals himself to be a Skrull all along. So Hank Pym was a Skrull, and they've taken out Reed Richards, and that is the end of issue 1. We move into issue 2. In the Savage Land, Heroes Against Heroes, which is a classic comic book trope. But in this case, you don't even know if the people standing next to you are friends or enemies, which is really fucking cool. So we get some great back and forth. The heroes are trying to decide who is who. Who's a hero, who's a Skrull. We can see Hawkeye here. Hawkeye, of course, is Ronin. So when you saw him in his later costume, that's a new costume. Mockingbird, of course, is or was his former lover. They had a child together, but she miscarried. It's a whole big thing. And so they just start kind of going at it. Of course, some beautiful art here. We have classic heroes versus classic heroes. Sentry versus Vision. Those of you that don't know Sentry, Sentry was a character that was... okay, so he's kind of like a Superman-esque character, but he has a dark side to him that's called the Void. So he had his identity and everything erased from everyone in existence, and then they kind of brought him back. It was a really interesting experiment for a character, and I really like the character of Sentry. I think he's really cool. So they just go at it. You know, a dinosaur comes, breaks up the fight. Tony Stark is kind of grappling with this virus that's slowly killing him because of his Stark Tech armor. And they are slowly weeding out who is a Skrull and who is not a Skrull. Wolverine, of course, is doing his regular thing. They discover that Hawkeye from the ship is a Skrull, which means Ronin probably isn't. But he sees Mockingbird again for the first time in forever, and he's like, she's not a Skrull. I know, I'm just going to protect her. Okay, back in the city, the Baxter Building, of course, being sucked into the negative zone, just as the Skrulls start to invade. And you can see now the Skrulls, not only are they shapeshifters, but they have all of the powers of the heroes. So we have a Doctor Strange Skrull, a Doc Ock Skrull, Human Torch, Cyclops. So the Skrulls have found a way to basically imbue their DNA with the powers of the heroes that they have captured. And that ends issue 2. We move on to issue 3. We are at the helicarrier, which has kind of come down in the ocean. And we see Jarvis. We know Jarvis is a Skrull, and he's kind of put Maria Hill on the spot. At the same time, in Thunderbolts Mountain, we have the new Venom. This is the Mac Gargan Venom, who is the original Scorpion, but he bonded with the Venom symbiote at some point. Captain Marvel is attacking them. Norman Osborn tries to talk him down, of course. And then we move to Camp Hammond. This is where the young heroes that have signed up for the Superhero Initiative after the Civil War event, they've registered as superheroes. This is where they are training, and they've just been called because of the Skrull invasion, so they have to go into the city. And as you can see, the city is under attack. Now, at this point, we get introduced to a couple of teams, like the Young Avengers. I don't know these characters very well. They seem pretty cool, but I'm not familiar with like the Young Avengers comics or anything like that. So the Skrulls are attacking the city, and the Young Avengers are trying to kind of take them all down, doing their thing. At this point, back in the Savage Land, Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, has tracked down Tony Stark, and she is telling him that he is a Skrull, and this whole invasion was made possible because he started this Superhero Registration Act, which turned the heroes against one another, which was in the Civil War event earlier on. So she's trying to get him to believe that he is basically the greatest Skrull that has ever lived, and that she's in love with him and all this kind of stuff. She's kind of messing with his mind here. He's not sure whether or not he believes her. He's hoping it's not true, but we don't know exactly what's going on. Back in the city, the Skrulls are decimating the Young Avengers and the other teams that are working, until Nick Fury shows up with his little squad. So we see Nick Fury here. We see the Hood, who is technically a villain. Not quite sure. That might not be the Hood. That might be another character. And they start fighting back, which ends issue 3. Leading us into issue 4, where we see Reed Richards is being experimented on by the Skrulls. Now, they view Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four as their greatest adversary because he has defeated them so many times. And then we have an armada coming. Agent Brand is kind of watching the fleet come in. We have the heroes that can fly heading to the city to stop the Skrulls, or at least attempt to, as Nick Fury, along with the Initiative and the Young Avengers, are trying to stop this Skrull invasion. It goes about as well as you could expect. The Skrulls are quite powerful. Back in the Savage Land, Black Widow has chanced upon Jessica Drew and Tony Stark, along with a few others. Jean Grey, Beast, of course, And they do that back and forth. Are you a Skrull? Are you a Skrull? How the fuck should I know? Kind of a thing. And Black Widow is trying to convince Tony that he is not a Skrull. At this point, Jessica Drew kind of bails. Wolverine appears. Black Widow shoots him, but he's fucking Wolverine, so he's got the healing factor. Agent Brand manages to get on board one of the Skrull ships, and she starts to kind of infiltrate it to find out what is going on. So, no, Daddy's busy. Okay. So, Jarvis basically expects Maria Hill to surrender. He tells her that there is no hope. At this point, we see the Hood with his gang of villains. They're going to go and help in the fight. And during the battle against the Skrulls, Thor appears. And then we see what I assume is Falcon, Captain America, watching the battle, thus ending the 4th issue. Moving into issue 5, Norman Osborn talks Captain Marvel down and lets the Thunderbolts know that they are going to go and help. At this point, we have Nick Fury in his secret base with the Young Avengers that survived kind of the battle, letting them know what is going on. The Skrulls have taken over media and they are pushing propaganda. We have, there's Eric Cartman from South Park, Stephen Colbert, Magneto, we got Oprah Winfrey, a few others, Dr. Doom. So they are basically saying it's inevitable. We are going to take over your planet. Just deal with it. Agent Brand manages to go batshit crazy on the Skrull vessel. I believe, I'm not too sure about the character, but I believe she's part Skrull, possibly, hence the green hair. Not too sure. And she manages to find Reed Richards and free him from the torture. Reed Richards tells her, you've got to fly this ship. I'm going to make a device that is going to help us. On the SHIELD helicarrier, Maria Hill is goading Jarvis, which, we know is a Skrull at this point, and basically tells him that she isn't Maria Hill. She is a life model decoy. So when she is executed, she's just a robot. Maria Hill has a sniper rifle, which she uses to blow up the helicarrier and escape, which is kind of cool. Okay, you might hear some background noise at this point because my cat has decided, Daddy's filming, time to take a shit. So, whatever, just deal with it. Reed Richards and Agent Brand kind of go off on the Skrull ship. Captain Marvel kind of appears at this point back in the Savage Land. They are still trying to work out who are heroes and who are Skrull. But at this point, the ship that Agent Brand and Reed Richards are on descends, and Reed Richards has created a device that allows, that brings the Skrulls out into their natural form. So you can tell who is a Skrull and who is not. And we can see who all the Skrulls are. And Ronan is upset to discover that Mockingbird, his former wife and lover, is in fact a Skrull and not the real thing. And he gets mega pissed off. He goes on a shooting rampage. They defeat all the Skrulls, but Hawkeye, going by Ronan, basically says he's going to kill every motherfucking last one of them. So there you go. moving into issue 6 now, where Captain Marvel comes. He's kind of fighting this guy who, am I a Skrull? Am I not a Skrull? You've got to go and finish my mission. And then we get these shots from the point of view of the Skrulls, and this is the Skrulls basically laying out their plan. This is a prophecy that the Skrulls had, and they are basically here to conquer the Earth. But they're pretty much saying everything stays the same. Nothing is going to change. We are just going to be in control, and that's going to be better for everyone. Now, at this point, we discover that they have a contingency plan, and that plan is in the form of the Wasp. Janet Van Dyne, formerly Hank Pym's wife before he smacked her around a bit due to his alcoholism. So what we know at this point is Hank Pym had given the Wasp a new growth formula which would allow her to shift from Wasp form to giant form without having to kind of go through the human form first. So it makes it a bit easier. We know Hank Pym is a Skrull. That does not bode well for the Wasp. They discover that Reed Richards has escaped. Jessica Drew, who we know now is the Skrull Empress, is pissed off. The heroes are kind of all heading back to the city, but it's a little too late. The Skrulls have already invaded. There are some people that like this Skrull invasion, those same idiots we saw in Independence Day that when the alien ships came, they went to those parties on the roof of the buildings with the signs, and then they all got fucking obliterated because aliens suck. Same thing here with the Skrulls and with the people. A battle ensues, of course, and Thor comes down and basically does his thing. Now, Thor has not been a part of the Avengers since Civil War. He disagreed with Tony Stark's Superhero Registration Act, and so he kind of left to do his own thing, but he is still a protector of humanity. We get the big Skrull hero showdown. Avengers assemble, of course. And then we have the giant brouhaha. Now, you've got to admit, this art is fucking phenomenal. I would love this hanging on my wall. Just heroes versus Skrulls. This is just superb. This is everything you want in a comic book story. Moves us into part 7, which is basically the fight. Everyone is kind of fighting against everyone else, which is, you know, I mean, just look at this. This is just superb. Very well paced. The fight scenes and the panels are very well paced, in my personal opinion. I thought this was excellent. But the ultimate goal is for the Skrulls to take out Reed Richards. He is their main adversary because he can defeat them. Spider-Man makes a joke. We're going to win. You don't have to worry, because the only time bad shit happens is when the Watcher appears. And the Watcher appears. Freaking hilarious. You've got a Skrull Galactus here, for crying out loud. I mean, come on. How much better can this be? At this point, Jessica Jones, who is married to Luke Cage, they have a kid together. You might remember Jessica Jones from the TV show on Netflix, I believe now on Disney+. She leaves the baby in the care of Jarvis and says, I have to go and do what I need to. Jarvis says he will take care of the baby. Wait a minute, isn't Jarvis a Skrull? Yes, he is. Jarvis takes care of the kid. Jessica Jones goes off to help fight, and then all absolute motherfucking hell breaks loose as they all try to take out Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, aka the Empress of the Skrulls. Ronan shoots her through the face with an arrow. She's about to go down when we find out that the Wasp has something wrong with her. Something in her body is about to explode. Could it be the formula that Hank Pym created for her previously to make her powers easier to use, even though we know Hank Pym was a Skrull? Yeah, pretty sure that's it. And then we see Jarvis turn into a Skrull with Luke Cage and Jessica Jones's baby, just as Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp, is about to go supernova, leading us into the final issue, issue 8. Now, issue 8, I believe, in my opinion, felt very rushed, only because you get most of the story as a back and forth conversation. I think they could have played this out over a few more issues, but that's just my opinion. So we see that Janet Van Dyne is about to go supernova. Thor kind of contains the energy using his godlike abilities. Jessica Drew sees that all of the heroes are aligned against her. We even have Daredevil in there. Street level hero. Go Daredevil. Bullseye, another villain. They attack, but who gets the killing blow? Norman Osborn gets the killing blow on the Skrull Empress. Why is this important? You will see in a moment. The Skrull forces try to flee, but Iron Man manages to kind of stop one of these ships. He scans it and discovers that on board the fleeing vessel are all of the captured heroes that were previously Skrulls, or that the Skrulls pretended to be. You can see Jessica Drew here. I believe that's Maria Hill. That's the Contessa. That is Susan Storm. Sorry, I covered up her boobies. We have Dum Dum Dugan. All of these heroes that are now back in our regular continuity. They had been captured by the Skrulls. The Skrulls had experimented with their DNA to create these superhero Skrull hybrids. And we just get these reunion scenes. Susan Storm, realizing that something's wrong with the Baxter building, hurries back there to discover that the Human Torch and Ben Grimm had saved their kids, Franklin, Richards, and I believe Valeria. Maybe not. And Reed has a contingency plan to get the Baxter building back from the negative zone. Thor and Tony Stark have a bit of a tense confrontation. Tony's happy that Thor's back, but Thor's like, fuck you, dude. You've done fucked up. And then we have the president meeting with someone. This is Hulkling. He is a half Skrull, and he's worried about what is going to happen now that the Skrull invasion, are they going to look favorably upon him? The president is meeting with someone, declaring Tony Stark out of S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D. disbanded, and this new person is in charge, and that is Norman Osborn, because the world saw that Norman Osborn took out the Skrull Empress. Therefore, he is, in the eyes of the Marvel Universe, a hero. He now has all access to Avengers tech, Stark tech, all of that kind of stuff. But his main concern is this. This is his inner circle. They are now in control. We have Doctor Doom, Emma Frost, the White Queen, Namor, Loki, and the Hood, and they are now the big power players. And this team, I believe, was called the Dark Avengers, and that is the series that kind of ran on after this Secret Invasion. And that is basically the end of the story, where heroes can't be trusted. Norman Osborn is now viewed as a hero, even though he's one of the greatest villains in the MCU. And there we have it. Now, this edition also comes with extra art, of course, extra pages, the timeline of Secret Invasion, the planning sheets, some Q&A stuff, and probably my favorite is the script for the different issues. I really like stuff like this because as a writer, it's very helpful for me. And then we have the alternate cover art, of course. That was Secret Invasion. In my opinion, one of the best kind of maxi series that Marvel has produced in a long, long time. It was great to see, to bring the Skrulls to the spotlight first and foremost. I think they're not utilized enough anymore. But to see, you know, heroes as villains, villains as heroes, who can be trusted, all the different costume designs. When the heroes come out of the Skrull ship, they're in their older costumes as opposed to the modern ones. I think all of this was a lot of fun, and it's a really, really great read. I suggest you go back and pick it up. I mean, it's kind of dated now, but that really doesn't matter. You can still have a lot of fun with Secret Invasion. So there you go. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, leave a comment, have a drink, of course. Hit the notification bell after the fridge beeps so you don't miss a video. But most importantly, stay safe. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And please read a fucking book, people.